Hello everyone, welcome to FedScoop TV. My name is Greg Otto and we're here at the 2016 Red Hat Government Symposium and I'm talking with Dr. David Bray, the CIO of the FCC. David, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
So, open source, there's been a lot of progress in this administration. Kind of talk to me about how you've seen that and where you see it going in the next administration.
Sure, so I think open source has now gotten a solid footprint as a path for what can be used to remix interesting microservices.
Okay.
Personally, I feel like that in general, that by exception, public service really shouldn't be writing code. What we should do is remix things across different microservices that are ideally provided by a commercial entity.
Okay.
Because really our skill set is actually applying those microservices to the mission of public service.
Right.
Open source allows you to be able to understand what are the API calls that you need to do, so you can connect things almost like pieces of a quilt,
right,
and build a large patchwork quilt from that. The other thing, though, is it actually allows you to engender trust.
Okay.
You can know what the algorithm is doing. And to me, that is really the next 2 to 3 years is, you may know that at the FCC, when I arrived in late 2013, we had been actually sort of having people volunteer their broadband speeds, and we had been paying for this in installations. We wanted to crowdsource and see if people would be willing to volunteer their broadband connection speed.
Right.
But you can imagine in late 2013 saying, hi, I'm with the US government, would you like to download this app that'll monitor your broadband connection speed? Might not be successful. But by making the code open source, the ACLU, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and other groups, they took a look at the code and they said, well, look, by design, they don't know who you are in a 5-mile radius. By design, they're not collecting your IP address. And the terms and conditions for this app is only 2 pages long. And so that got trust. And so I think what's interesting going forward, because I think cloud is right now the appetizer.
Right.
Main course is going to be artificial intelligence, data analytics. Public service is going to need to have more open source algorithms, open source code, so that the public can actually sort of check and confirm that the things that are being done with the code is in fact protecting privacy and is privacy by design.
Right. So public facing is one thing, but there's still opportunities inside the enterprise for open source to be leveraged in everything that they're doing. Cybersecurity, obviously top of mind for the public sector. Where do you see the benefit in open source when it comes to cybersecurity?
So particularly for cybersecurity, I think what I'd like to see is micro cloud services. I mean, we have FedRAMP right now. Right. FedRAMP does a sort of seal of approval. I'd like to see some combination between GSA with their procurement authorities and FedRAMP, where there's already pre-vetted micro cloud services that can be used for cybersecurity purposes, so that instead of FCC and other agencies all having to do procurement on their own, these have already gone through FedRAMP, these have already gotten GSA approval, or maybe they're going through FedRAMP approval and they're not approved yet. But whatever it is, I don't have to have my own procurement shop do 14 different procurements in a year, which would be rather burdensome.
Right.
I can go to like a schedule with GSA and buy that. One of the things we are trying to do at the FCC is, already we're 100% public cloud commercial service provider, but we're actually trying to make sure our cybersecurity suite and our security operations center is actually 100% cloud-based as well. And so having those tools already sort of available with procurement authorities through GSA, I think will allow other agencies to move forward with speed as well.
All right, so same question, but I would frame it more of like from an IT modernization standpoint. How does open source help agencies move away from legacy IT? And I'm guessing we're going to talk a little bit more about those APIs you were talking about.
Yes, exactly. You're right. So legacy IT was built in the monolithic era in which the user interface, the code, the data was all one part of a system. If you're going to modernize, especially for some hairball systems, I mean, we had some that were 18 years old, written in 5 different languages, version control was an issue.
Right.
If you want to move to modernize them, you first want to scour and say, are there any existing software as a service or platform as a service offerings? And ideally they are open, because what you can do is you can say, I want to take pieces of this system and begin to almost like take the MD-80 in flight and modernize it to a 777, Boeing 77. But you can't do that all at once.
Right.
Because the public is still going to be using the system. It takes time to unwind the hairball that it was. And so by having open source and doing it on the inside of the enterprise, you can take pieces of that MD-80, maybe you give it bigger wings, now you give it turboprop, now you actually move to jet engines, more seats. And then in a period of 2 to 3 years, you look back and you've modularly modernized the system, but in progress along the way there was immediate advantages to the public that they saw gains, and they weren't waiting 3 years for the entire plane to be rolled out.
All right. So where else are the good points for open source inside federal agencies? Is it in regards to mobility? Is it in regards to collaboration? Is it helping ship services out? Is it all three? What do you have to say about that?
Personally, I think it's all the above, and I would say that what we really need to think about is public service, instead of being hierarchical agencies,
Okay.
how can we have networks that associate around specific problem areas? One of the things I ask people is, how many of you would be willing to volunteer data on air quality or water quality using your smartphone if you knew for sure that the data was kept anonymous and kept private?
Right.
And air quality and water quality, that's not a specific agency. That's multiple agencies. And so what I'd like to see is initiatives aimed at open source micro cloud services, again, working with the private sector where they are hosting it and maybe they're helping design it, but it's a service that actually focuses on problems that span agencies.
Right.
So we're not trying to do individual solutions that are just for one specific agency. I mean, same thing with telecommunications. While FCC obviously plays a role, there's Department of Commerce, there's several other departments and agencies that also play a role. So how can we actually sort of come together as networks, reusing things? And the nice thing about open source is you can see, again, what the code is doing, both for public trust, but also for departments and agencies to know where it fits in their mission.
Right.
I think, to me, that would be the excitement in 2017 and beyond, is organized by problem sets using open source code as opposed to specific hierarchical agencies.
So interesting. Let's elaborate on that a little bit more. You were talking about public trust. What other opportunities do you see for open source helping further public service and helping the way the public interacts with their federal government?
So I'd actually pull from an example that I saw in Taiwan.
Okay.
So in Taiwan, they had the National Weather Service, and they were pushing out updates. And they were text updates. They did a graphic every 24 hours, but they were text updates every hour. And there was a group called G0V, so it's government but with a zero in the middle, which is kind of neat. And this is a group of volunteers that have day jobs, but in the evenings they get together. And so G0V Taiwan decided to take those text updates and produce a real-time map using it. And they made the code open source, and actually they made it available, and in fact, for their government in Taiwan to use it. And so the government contacted them and said, "Are you okay with this?" They said, "Great." And so it was a crowdsourced, citizen-led effort to take the text data feeds that their National Weather Service was doing, produce hourly maps, and actually, in a sense, public service brought it back in.
Okay, interesting.
So there may be things where, I think the real innovations are going to happen with data and artificial intelligence. But if we make available the data, maybe people will figure out new ways of doing things using open source that makes their local community better. And then out of a civic ethos, if they want, make it available for ingest back into public service so that other people can use it too.
Great, great. Appreciate your insight as always. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
For all of our videos, check out our YouTube channel, and for more information, check out fedscoop.com. I'm Greg Otto. Thanks for watching.